the story's a little bit all over the place, but kind of 3-4 months ago, everything came to a head. So I moved here from Ireland a little over 3 years ago, and the last couple of months this year, I've had a work permit refused while waiting for the permanent residency application to go through. And it's always interesting when you get a letter from the government saying we may be asking you to leave. That was one of those holy shit moments. So that put me in a position where the trade show I had recommended for work was happening that morning when I had to call the boss and say I can't legally work right now. So that went really well. Ended up quitting that job. And it was at like the same point in time when I moved out from my fiance's place, like who I'd met here in Canada. So on paper, everything looked like it was working. Like everything was there. Like I came in, you know, arrived in Canada with 2 suitcases. Here we were 2.5 years later. I'd met the most magical woman, was so in love, and there were just so many things that weren't quite right. So it started with a dog. So this had been an interesting year because I had decided this year to actually go for the pieces that made me really uncomfortable, like to actually see where that led. I'd kind of had enough of chasing my tail, if you like. So one weekend I said, hey, you know, I said to my fiance, hey, can you give me a little bit of space for the weekend? So she said, no problem. She went away and stayed with a friend on the Friday night, and then Saturday morning she came back, got the Jeep, and she was going up to the parents' cottage. And then I got a phone call. And the phone call, the short version of it was, I kind of got a dog. I was like, what do you mean? So it turned out she'd adopted a dog. And I got angry on the phone, and then I got off, and then I called her back. Because normally what I do is I don't like to get angry. Like that's one of those things, like growing up, it was just not one of those places we went to at home. And the biggest thing for me was I just felt I wasn't involved in making what I call like life's decisions. You know, this was like the woman I was going to marry, the woman I was in love with, and then there was like this dog that was going to be there, and I didn't have anything about the dog, but it was just there was something there that was missing, that was going to be a part of my life for a long time, and that really upset me. And I said to her, can you go and stay with your mom for like a week, and let's sort this out. And like the couple of days turned into a week, turned into a month, and I was sitting in, because I had moved into like her apartment, and we were living there, so technically it was our apartment. But I remember sitting there at points and just like breaking down in tears, and wondering like what happened. Like I couldn't figure out why I felt so like upset and so sad and so angry. And a month passed, and she gave the dog back, which I knew was a big deal. And then the next day she was due to come home. And I was like really looking forward to, like, missed her so much. And then the next day I got like messages from her just saying how upset she was about the dog, and how like sick she was feeling and all of those pieces. And there was something there that happened that I just broke down. Like I just melted into the couch and I just sobbed my heart out. And I didn't know what had happened and how things had gotten to this point. Like I was here, like my experience was like waiting for her to come home. And then I realized that I was like, something's wrong, like I'm not important in this. And it was like the loneliest time of my life. Like I said, on paper everything was working, but I had never been as upset. And the upset was there because it was like there was anger, and there was things that I hadn't said for a long time, and they never got to come out. And so whatever changed that day, I packed all my stuff up, I put it into her Jeep, I drove to my sister's in Ajax. And my hope was, I hope something shocks. And I hope like things change a little bit. And I hope like she comes back and kind of like, there's like a start or something. And it never really worked that way. So I moved into my sister's, and my mum had just come over. My sister was having a baby, which turned out to be like the following week. So there was my sister, her husband, now 2 kids, my mom and me. But I knew I couldn't go to the places that I normally went. I would normally bury myself in work or find things to do that would have me be busy. And I knew those things wouldn't get me anywhere. And so literally for the last couple of months I took time. I didn't go running into a job, and I let the stuff that was coming up come up. And it meant there was some days where I couldn't stop crying. And there was some days I was like so fucking angry. And at some point my mom came and she said to me, she said, "I'm really worried about you." And I said, "Mom, that's 6 weeks you've been telling me that." And I said, my experience is, since you came here, like, you've been avoiding me like the plague. But something happened that we ended up having kind of uncomfortable conversations, but the whole process that I went through, I got to see that not only, like, I knew up here that we ended up doing things like our parents do in their relationships. But I didn't get the impact that I was like, oh, I'm actually my fucking mom. Like, I'm actually the one in the relationship complaining about the other one, not able to communicate properly, and then I go and I pick a different person and I do the same thing, and I pick a different person and I do the same thing, and I get the same fucking result. And through the process of, I'm just going to call it like the silence, because when things get uncomfortable, I want to go to places that make it easier, but I couldn't go there anymore. And so what happened was, I'm like, over the last, let's just call it like week and a half, new job, new car, ran my first event last weekend, building out my website, book's nearly done, and it's a bit like all of the pieces that were there all along, I never let them out. And it's interesting, like I'm 36 now, it's interesting seeing how many things were there that I wanted all along. But because I was looking to her in the relationship, like maybe if I do enough things for her, she'll tell me I'm doing a good job, and maybe then I'll be okay. And I really wasn't. So, you know, having started a new job, which Joe helped me get last week, I have gone in there, and previously it was all about, like I work in sales, it's all about get the numbers, you know, make sure people like me. And I've walked into this job, maybe for the first time ever, like, I don't give a shit if they like me. Because I'm walking in to do a job. And if it comes down to them having to give me something, I'm looking for something from them to be okay to do a good job, I'm right back where I started. And so the thing was, this year, I went and I did all of the weird things. I did the clearing process. I went to the strange doctor that takes me 2 hours to go to in St. Catherine's for a 15-minute session and then drive 2 hours back. But I did all of the pieces that in my heart and soul I knew were right. And since then the right people have been showing up, and I've never been more in love. So with all of the pieces, I'm still not sure how some of them will work out, but I know there's pieces there that I believe in and they're my dream, and I don't have to justify that to anybody anymore. And that's the coolest thing in the fucking world. That's it, thank you.